I was standing in my own hallway, car keys in my hand, jacket still on. I had just driven 40 minutes through traffic because I wanted to surprise her with dinner. I had the restaurant picked out. I had the reservation in my phone. I was smiling like an idiot the entire drive home. And then I heard her laughing. Not the laugh she gave me. This was different. This was loose and careless and completely unguarded. The laugh of someone who believes they are completely alone. He actually thinks I love him, she said. Honey, as long as his bank account stays healthy, so does this relationship. I did not move. I could not move. I stood there in that hallway with my keys pressed into my palms so hard I felt the metal teeth cutting into my skin. And I just listened. The smell of her perfume was drifting from the living room. The same perfume I had bought her for her birthday 2 months ago. I remember thinking, very clearly, that this was the moment my life split in two. I took one breath. Then I called out, steady as I could manage. Baby, I'm almost home. I heard the scramble. The quick shuffle of feet. The sound of her voice completely rearranging itself in real time. She appeared in the hallway doorway, phone down, smile warm, eyes soft. Hey you, she said. I missed you today. She looked directly at me when she said it. She did not blink. She did not hesitate. Not even a flicker. That night, I sat in my car in the parking garage for 45 minutes before I could make myself go back inside. And I made a decision. I was not going to cry. I was not going to confront her. Not yet. Because what she did not know, what she could not have guessed in 1,000 years, was that I had already been recording our conversations for 3 weeks. My name is Caleb. I am 34 years old. I want you to understand something about me before this story goes any further. I am not a dramatic person. I do not have a flashy life. I work as a logistics coordinator for a mid-sized supply company. I drive a practical car. I live in a clean but modest apartment. I grew up watching my mother stretch every dollar until it was transparent, and that shaped me in ways I am still discovering. I saved carefully. I sent money home every month without being asked. I built a small investment portfolio over 5 years, not because I was ambitious in any loud way, but because I believed that quiet consistency was its own kind of strength. I was not the man women wrote poetry about. I knew that, but I was loyal in a way that very few people are truly loyal, the kind that shows up at midnight, that remembers the small things, that loves without keeping score. That loyalty became the weapon she used against me. Let me take you back 3 months before that hallway moment, because the betrayal did not begin in one terrible night. It began in small, quiet moments that I kept choosing to explain away. I planned a weekend trip for Dana and me. Nothing extravagant. A nice in 2 hours outside the city. A dinner reservation I had saved toward for 6 weeks. A chance to breathe and just be together. I wanted her to feel like she mattered to me. I wanted to show her, not just tell her. She spent most of the drive looking at her phone. When we arrived, she said the room was fine. Not wonderful. Not sweet. Fine. Like I had handed her something adequate. I told myself she was tired. I am embarrassed now by how many times I told myself she was just tired. But something shifted in me during that trip. I began to notice a very specific pattern. Whenever I mentioned something financial, upgrading my apartment, possibly trading in my car, a raise I was being considered for, something would happen in her eyes. A light would come on. Not the warm kind. The calculating kind. The kind that belongs to someone doing math. Then I lost a freelance contract. It was temporary. A side project that had simply run its course. I was not worried about it. But within 4 days, Dana's texts got shorter. She canceled plans twice in 1 week. When I called, she sounded like she was doing me a favor by picking up. I told myself it was a coincidence. Then came the birthday dinner. Her friend's celebration. 8 people at a restaurant I had dressed up for. Midway through the meal, one of her friends asked me casually about my work. Before I could answer, Dana set down her wine glass and said, with the ease of someone commenting on the weather, I just think Caleb needs to be more ambitious. I have standards, you know. The table went quiet for exactly 1 second. Then someone laughed, and the conversation moved on. But I felt every person at that table file those words away. I felt myself shrink in my chair in a way I had not felt since I was a child, being talked about like I was not in the room. Later, her friend leaned across the table and whispered, not quietly enough, I thought you said he was doing well. Dana shrugged. An actual shrug. Like I was a slightly disappointing investment she was still deciding whether to hold or sell. I stared at my plate. The food had gone cold. I had not touched it. I drove home alone that night, and something inside me stopped being soft. The financial requests started arriving like small tests to see how much I would carry before I noticed the weight. First, it was her rent. Just this 1 month, things are tight, I'm good for it. I paid it without question because I loved her, and that is what love does. Then it was her car note. Then a credit card balance she described as an emergency. Then a trip to Miami she had already told her friends about before she mentioned it to me, framed as something we would do together, funded entirely by me. The requests never stopped, and every single one came wrapped in the same quiet threat. If I hesitated, I was selfish. If I asked questions, I was unsupportive. If I said I needed time to think about it, I clearly did not love her the way she deserved to be loved. "You're just not on my level yet, Caleb," she said one evening while we were watching television, completely unprompted. "When you get there, we can actually talk about a real future." I looked at her face when she said it. She was not being cruel. That was the part that hollowed me out. She genuinely believed it. She believed she was being honest with me, doing me the courtesy of her honesty, while she systematically drained everything I had built. The worst night came at a mutual friend's apartment gathering. 15 people, easy conversation, music playing low in the background. Dana spent the better part of an hour talking to a man I did not know, laughing at everything he said, touching his arm when she made a point. I watched it happen from across the room, completely still, a drink in my hand that I never finished. On the drive home, I brought it up. Quietly. No accusation in my voice, just the truth of what I had seen. She turned and looked at me like I had embarrassed myself. "You're insecure," she said. "That is your problem, Caleb. Not mine." I said nothing. But inside, something that had been cracking for months finally went completely quiet. I was done grieving. I was done trying to understand her. I was now only watching. Filing. Building a case she would never see coming. One evening, I looked at her over dinner and said casually, "What if I told you I was thinking about us long term? Like seriously thinking about it?" I watched her face shift. The warmth came in immediately, the hand reaching across the table, the soft eyes, the slow smile. But underneath all of it, just visible if you knew to look, was calculation. Pure and clean and completely unsentimental. I saw her fully in that moment. Every layer of her. And I felt, for the first time in months, completely calm. What she did not know was that I had been building something in silence for weeks. 47 audio recordings, each one labeled with a date and a brief description. 23 screenshots of text messages where she had asked me for money within 24 hours of going emotionally cold. A complete financial log of every transfer, every payment, every just this once that had happened over 14 months. I had a folder on my laptop called documentation. It was thorough enough to make an attorney raise their eyebrows. I had also called an old friend who works in financial fraud investigation. I described the pattern without using names. He listened carefully and then said, "What you're describing is financial coercion through manufactured emotional dependency. It's deliberate. It's calculated. And you're not the first person who's called me about something like this." Hearing it named like that did something to me. This was not a complicated relationship I had failed to navigate. This was not my fault. This was a strategy. A deliberate, patient, calculated strategy. I was not angry anymore. I was something sharper than angry. I was ready. Raymond was my supervisor at my previous company for 4 years before he retired. He was the kind of man who could walk into a room full of noise and make it quiet just by sitting down. A retired attorney turned mentor, and one of the few people in my life who had never once told me what I wanted to hear when the truth was available. I called him on a Wednesday afternoon and told him everything. Every detail from the beginning. He did not interrupt. He did not soften his expression or tell me I was exaggerating. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Son, what you have been inside is not a relationship. It is a financial arrangement she constructed without your knowledge or consent." Those words sat in my chest like stones. Raymond spent the next 2 weeks helping me move carefully and legally. He walked me through closing off financial access points I had left carelessly open. He reviewed my documentation. He helped me understand exactly what I had and what it meant. Most importantly, he coached me on how to end this without giving Dana any opportunity to reframe the story. "You don't need to be loud," he told me. "Loud is for people who don't have evidence. You have evidence. Be quiet. Be precise. Be done." Meanwhile, Dana had grown bold. She was talking about a trip to Portugal with a specificity that told me she had already started planning it. Flights, hotels, a food tour she had apparently already bookmarked. She mentioned it 3 times in 2 weeks, each time adding more detail, each time with the relaxed confidence of someone who has already decided it is happening. She was building a vacation on money I had not agreed to spend. Then, 2 days after I casually mentioned a possible promotion at work, she looked at me across the dinner table with a new expression. Softer than I had seen in months. "I love you, Caleb," she said. It was the first time she had ever said those words to me. I looked at her. I let a few seconds pass. And then I smiled, because it was already over. Every piece was in place. The recording was running. And she had just handed me the perfect final chapter. I did not scream. I did not send a devastating text. I did not show up at her door with accusations pouring out of me like something I could not control. I had watched too many people destroy their own justified anger by delivering it messily. I wrote a blog post instead. Anonymous. No full names, no employer details, nothing that crossed any legal line. But the specifics were precise enough to be unmistakable to anyone who had been in that world with her. The title was, "She Loved My Bank Account," a story about the woman who priced me out of my own heart. I wrote it on a Thursday evening, slowly and carefully, the way you write something you have been composing in your head for months without knowing it. I described the rent requests and the pattern behind them. The coldness that arrived like clockwork whenever money was tight. The "not on my level" comment. The arm touching at the party. The first, "I love you," delivered 48 hours after a promotion was mentioned. I published it at 9 in the evening and went to sleep. By Saturday morning, it had been shared over 9,000 times. Dana's friends recognized it immediately. Screenshots started circulating through group chats I was not part of. 3 separate people texted me asking if I had seen a post going around that sounded familiar. I told them I had seen it. I texted Dana and asked her to meet me for coffee Sunday morning. Somewhere public. Somewhere calm. She arrived looking slightly unsettled, but trying to appear casual, wearing the kind of careful expression people wear when they are not sure what they are walking into. I was already seated. 2 coffees on the table. I waited until she sat down completely. Then I slid my phone across the table with the blog post open on the screen. Share count visible. Comments visible. 9,200 shares visible. "I wrote that 3 days ago," I said. My voice was completely level. 3 days before you told me you loved me. Interesting timing, don't you think? She stared at the screen. I watched her face move through several different emotions in the space of about 15 seconds. Disbelief, then recognition, then a calculation of her options, then tears. "Caleb, that is not the full picture. I do care about you, I swear, if you would just let me. I have 47 recordings," I said. She stopped. 23 texts where you asked me for money within 24 hours of going cold. A complete financial record of 14 months. And 1 voicemail, saved and backed up, where you called me a stepping stone to something better. I picked up my phone. I stood up slowly. "I don't need you to explain anything to me. I understand everything perfectly." She tried one more time. "Please, can we just—" "Thank you," I said. And I meant it genuinely, without any cruelty in it. "You taught me something important about myself. About what I will and won't accept. That's worth something. I mean that." And I walked out of that coffee shop. Behind me I could already hear her phone ringing. The quiet that followed was the deepest I had felt in years. I ended it completely and without drama. I closed every financial door she had access to, some of which I was embarrassed to realize had been open as long as they had. I redirected the energy I had been spending on managing her moods and meeting her expectations back into my own life, my own savings, my own friendships that had gone thin during the years I was distracted. The blog post continued to spread. A podcast focused on financial and emotional abuse in relationships reached out asking if I would speak anonymously about my experience. The episode aired in early spring, and within 10 days I had received more than 500 messages from strangers. Almost all of them said the same thing in different words. "I thought this only happened to me." It did not only happen to me. Not even close. Dana sent me a message in April. Long, carefully written, full of the vocabulary of someone who had either done a great deal of personal reflection or spoken to someone who coached them on what to say. She said she was sorry. She said there were things happening in her life that I never knew about. She said she hoped I was doing well. I read it once. I closed the app. I never replied. Not because I was still hurting, but because some doors, once you have had the strength to close them properly, do not deserve to be reopened. The mutual friends pulled back from her quietly, gradually, without any dramatic confrontation. Nobody needed to say anything. People had read the post. People had recognized the patterns. The social cost of what she had done settled on her slowly, the way these things always do when the truth is out in the open and there is nowhere left to hide. I sat on my couch one Sunday morning about 4 months after it all ended. Coffee in my hand. Sunlight coming through the window. The particular silence of a morning that belongs entirely to you. I thought about that hallway. The keys in my hand. Her laugh coming down the corridor. The perfume I had bought her floating in the air around something that was never real. She gambled on my love. She bet everything on the idea that I was too soft, too grateful, too in love to ever look closely at what she was actually doing. But the most dangerous person in the room is never the loudest one. It is the quiet one who has been watching and waiting and building something in silence. The one nobody thought to look at carefully. The one they underestimated completely. That was me. That was always me. If someone has ever made you feel like your worth was a number in an account rather than something alive and real inside you, I want to hear from you. Subscribe right now and leave your story in the comments. You loved the right way. They made the wrong choice. Click hype and help this story reach every single person tonight who is still in the middle of what I already walked out of. Your story has power. If something in mine felt familiar, please subscribe and share what you have been through in the comments below. Every hype you give this video carries it further, to someone sitting alone tonight wondering if anyone else understands. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening all the way to the end,